Andrew Urquhart with you on the program today, and today, of course, is Budget Day. High levels of expectation as to what the budget will include, although we pretty much know that there's going to be tax cuts for the so-called squeezed middle, and there'll be a few people thinking, am I squeezed middle? I don't know. And how much of a tax cut am I going to get? Well, joining me on the program now is Lieutenant Colonel Ian Hutson. He is head of the Social Policy and Parliamentary Unit for the Salvation Army. Ian, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Kia ora, morena.
It is Budget Day today, and, well, particularly given the constituency that you guys in the Salvation Army are focused on, concerns about, I suppose, yes, tax cuts for the squeezed middle, and I know there are people in that tier of society doing it tough, but whether there's going to be any leftovers for those doing it the toughest in our society.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing we would be hoping there was something for the people that we serve. We have about 155,000 people coming out through our doors every year, and we aren't optimistic by just going by what the sounds we're hearing, that,
Yep.
for example, tax cuts will not apply for, it appears, for anyone on any kind of benefit, and they are the hardest. They're already on very low incomes, and in the cost of living crisis and everything else that's going on, we would be hoping they somehow benefited out of this,
Yep.
rather than being left out in the cold, as it were.
Literally at this time of the year for some of those folk. I mean, another one of the key issues, of course, facing those that are marginalised is housing, and there seems to have been a bit of a stall, a huge rush in terms of social housing being given approval and getting the funding and all the paperwork sorted, but that seems to have stalled. What's your take on this, particularly with a budget lens? Good news for people struggling to get into housing, hopefully?
Well, that's what we really are hoping for, because let's be honest, I mean, there's been talk about getting people out of emergency housing, which is what, in one sense, that's what we want, but not if it's into, the car or a tent. And what we're seeing is numbers of people now out on the street like that, and the answer to it is obviously to build more houses, and particularly affordable. And for us, the biggest effort is around social housing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happened in that area, we'll be watching very closely, because we really don't. It does feel like there's a stall happening.
Yep.
And I guess we're worried that the investment that's needed, which is significant, won't happen. I mean, we've had that report that the what's his name? Oh, just the former Prime Minister. It's just kind of Bill English.
Bill English, yes. Sorry, yes.
Sorry, I was just having a brain fade there.
There's so many former prime ministers. I didn't know which one to pick, but yes, that report. Yep.
Yeah, and it was quite harsh on Kāinga Ora.
Yep.
And our worry is that they will pull Kāinga Ora back. It's good that they're now looking to include, community housing providers,
Mm-hmm.
resource to some extent, but it's a big question mark about whether community housing providers, for one, can get up to scale quick enough to do that.
Yep.
But also whether they'll get the kind of money that's required to do it anyway, and at the same time they'll scale down what Kāinga Ora is doing. And we could end up with, at a time when it's absolutely desperately needed, nothing or little happening.
Do you have a wish list? Do you, and when you're heading towards budget, do you and the team put together, gosh, this is what we hope is on the budget list, only to be disappointed when it doesn't turn up? Is that how you approach these things, Ian?
Well, we do put a few things down that we like. I mean, we wanted to see that what I've already mentioned about people on low incomes, that they get a real boost, because they're the ones who need it the most. We also had that we want to see significant investment. We don't put figures on it because it's, there's different ways of handling it. One of the ones that does kind of touch both of those issues is the one that we've advocated on your program in the past, which is the accommodation supplement, which hasn't been increased for, I think it's 5 or 6 years,
Yeah.
based on old demographic data or on the rental prices of about 20 years ago,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
meaning that, for example, the good example, Queenstown or Porirua, where they were some of the lowest rentals, so you get a sort of a low level of accommodation support because it is a low rental area. But
Hmm.
those two areas have gone sky high,
Yeah.
but you're still on the old rate, and so people are really struggling because in that area their income has really gone down. So that's one area. Obviously, investment in housing.
Yep.
We're also quite concerned about what we're hearing, and this is more on the provision of services around the Credit Contracts Act. There's been the
Okay.
taking away of well, it looks like they're going to completely wipe the regulation
Hmm.
and add protections. And on top of that, it looks like there's going to be a reduction in financial mentors, uh, which are the people that help try to extricate, or not extricate, but help people deal with debt.
Yep.
It looks like there's going to be a reduction in both those areas, which seems really concerning to us.
Mm. Hey,
Yeah,
so it might be a great budget for loan sharks and slumlords, which, I mean, that's not good news for the people that you work with. Is it part of your role as the Social Policy and Parliamentary Unit? I suppose, we're on the cusp of the budget here, but post-budget, from this afternoon, is it partly your role to hold the government accountable, to hold their feet to the fire on this one, to critique what you think isn't good enough? I mean,
yeah,
it's a
we,
tricky balance, I suppose, for you guys.
it is. Yeah, like I mean, we try not to be partisan,
Yep.
but because some people have said to us, "Well, you're not supposed to be involved in politics, right?"
Mm.
We don't agree with that idea. But But the idea that we are partisan, we agree we shouldn't be partisan, but
Yeah.
it sometimes can look like you are being partisan because, well, there hasn't been a government that, in my time in this role, that we haven't criticised their policies, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
but obviously sometimes policies of one side or the other
Mm.
is closer to ours, but it's never stopped us from criticising whichever left, right, or whatever centre,
Yeah.
because we feel like our job is to support the people that come to us, and for the marginalised people of our communities, um, who often get overlooked
Yeah.
by politicians because there's much more powerful voices than ours are, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But at least our voice can be a voice for those people.
Hey, and very much value and appreciate the role that you play in that regard, being a voice for people that don't have as many people advocating for them is a wonderful thing. I know there'll also be a lot of people listening to this morning, Ian, who are honestly very much looking forward to the tax cuts. The current economic situation has impacted a whole bunch of people, including the so-called squeezed middle. I suppose a bit of a challenge and an opportunity here, though, for people that are about to get tax cuts. And we were saying this last week with our on-air appeal. What do you do with that blessing? If you are in a situation where, yes, things have been tough and things are, well, that has eased a little bit due to tax cuts, I suppose the challenge is that if there's people listening to this whose life is going to get a little bit easier, what do you do with that to support not just you and your family, but the
Mm.
broader community as well? An opportunity for us to be generous with our tax cuts.
Yes, definitely. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't expect the Salvation Army person to not to say, "Yeah, we just had our Red Shield appeal the other week."
That would be a very good use of somebody's windfall tax cut. I'm very happy to say that, salvationarmy.org.nz, because honestly, regardless of government policies, and as you say, governments come and go, but you guys continue to be advocating for some of the poorest in our community. And whatever gets announced at the budget, you guys need the resources to keep on doing the wonderful work that you do. Ian, thank you so much for you and your team and what you do. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.